Right. So when we are working on the banking projects, especially on core banking projects or something as a business analyst, we must be knowing about what should be the two-step guide. Because whenever as a BA we work for any core banking application, understanding the requirements, providing necessary business solutions, right? So bridging the gap between business stakeholders, IT teams, among them. This is all something that we, as a BA, that we do. So it's not only about learning the domain specific part, but it's even important for us to know about the flow process. What is that something as a BA that we do when we are working on banking projects, especially on core banking, all that. So these were the different steps we have. The first one about the requirement gathering and illustration phase. In this phase, as a BA, we try to engage with stakeholders. Either it can be generally stakeholders we classify into two parts. One is internal stakeholders, second about the external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders, nothing but people who are involving directly in the project. Either it can be technical team, project management team, architects, all that. And external stakeholders can be the business owner, product owner, operations team. These are important. So engaging with stakeholders is important. To engage stakeholders and all, first of all, we need to identify stakeholders. For that, we use power and interest grid, followed by this for stakeholder analysis and management, we use ratio matrix. That is the first thing. Second, we need to conduct different workshops. Normally, now and then we call JAT sessions, which is called Joint Application and Development Session, wherein we are conducting the JAT session, wherein by inviting all the stakeholders under one roof, so that we will be knowing about two things. One is about the expectation, second was reality. What customer is expecting, what reality can we develop. So the understanding between these two is important. In that regard, it's important for us to conduct JAT session. Being a business analyst, we act as a JAT facilitator. So conducting workshops, conducting any kind of interviews, right? So document analysis, this is all something will be part of requirement gathering as well on a high level note. Next, need to capture the actual business issues or any kind of pain points. Understanding about the gaps, that's where generally we have to perform the gap analysis, right? Because sometimes we are moving from old legacy systems to the new application. So we need to identify what is the predominant gaps involved in between these two, so that we do gap analysis between as is and to be. So everything will be part of requirement gathering illustration. This is point number one. Point number two, once requirements gathering illustration is done, the next one about requirement analysis and documentation means what requirements were analyzed by us. Based on that, we need to prepare documents, something like business requirements, documents, etc., everything that will be followed. But make sure to prepare these BRD documents when you follow the traditional model. When you follow Agile and all, in spite of writing documents, we write epics and user stories. So for that, we may use Jira, Rally, right? Azure DevOps. These are the different tools that we have. Along with it, we need to define the functional and non-functional requirements also. What are all the functional requirements document we have, right? So non-functional requirements, everything we must be knowing. And also to ensure the traceability with business objects. This is all part of requirement analysis and documentation, which is the second thing. Second, requirement validation and sign off means wherein we need to review the requirements with stakeholders, necessary stakeholders. At the same time, we have to validate the feasibility. Feasibility can be anything. It can be operational feasibility, technical feasibility, financial or budget level feasibility, regulatory feasibility. All these things will be performed. So that's where validating the feasibility study is required, so that we will be knowing about how feasible for us to develop the project, either in terms of the budget. Sometimes we may have some budget limitations, sometimes we may have technical limitations, sometimes we may have some timeline limitations. Everything has to be validated under the feasibility study. Finally, we need to have a formal sign off to the business requirements or functional requirements document. When you follow the traditional model, I'm referring this. If you follow agile and all, in spite of it, we can write user stories, all that. Next, solution design and support. That's where generally architects comes into picture, because architect roles can be many. We may have solution architects, right? So we may have enterprise or application systems data architects are available. So those people have to come up with system design. System design, again, it will be categorized into two parts. What high-level system, high-level core banking system will be, right? So what are the components and how those are interconnected? Low-level components, nothing but what algorithm are we using? What programming language are we using? At the same time, what design patterns are we using? What algorithms are we using? Everything has to be detailed under the low-level design part. Based on that, what style of architecture that we are following. Okay, because either it can be microservices or event-driven architectural style of functioning. Right. This is all architecture part, solution designing part. So even we need to design high level as well as the low level design part. Designing the workflows, user interfaces, at the same time reviewing what solution you are going to develop, right? So how the solution design against to the requirements that we have taken. Everything will be part of solution design support, where majorly design team, architect team will be involved more on this. Next, about the core banking system configuration and decustomization, because as I already mentioned, repeating the same, there are conditions where existing core banking application was there for the customer. Now they are looking for the new thing. Either it can be a cloud version or something of that kind. So we need to make some necessary changes on the existing application sometimes, or transformation can be taken place further. So in that regard, whatever the core banking system which is already there, so we need to configure, because organization to organization, size of the business, volume they have, area of operations, this is all something will be varied. Okay, supporting configuration of the products, what are the different type of loans they have, right? So what are the different deposit schemes they are having? Everything has to be configured by the development team, but the configurational requirements as a BA that we will be taking, and how that can be detailed under the functional and non-functional and all that. So for this we need to interact with the development team to get the things done properly. This is all part of core banking configuration, customization, all that. Means provided any configuration is required, all that kind of. The next one about the testing phase, wherein we need to be part of user acceptance testing once the manual and automation is done, so that any changes were taken place in between, regression testing will be taken further. At the same time, any kind of defects that we have identified, how are we supporting the defect tri-agent resolutions, how are we validating the requirements, so that whatever the coverage test results we have, everything will be part of testing phase. And training and chain management part of BA, but training which is optional. If there is any requirement, chain training can be given. Finally, project will go on live, so that we can, if there is any data migration is something we will do, but data migration will not be done immediately. On batch-based processing, generally data migrations will be done by us. So this is how, as a BA, when we are working on any projects, especially on the core banking project as an example I've taken, as a business analyst, we must be. So one should be having some hands-on experience by doing all that. It's not simply by learning this way, but having some hands-on experience on working on business requirements document, right? So how the epics have identified, how the user stories were written, and what story points we have given for that, right? What acceptance criteria should be mentioned. All these things has to learn as a BA. That is one of the core and important thing one must be good with, one must be familiar with. This is what something which the complete course content which where you will be learning all that.